Tell me, what kind of shape do you think you're leaving the Greens in?
I think they're in great shape. I think the party's in excellent shape right now. We had our second best ever election result in 2019. Our party's building more volunteers and supporters than ever before. And of course, on the back of the horrendous, the tragic summer that Australians have endured, people, I think, acknowledge, and there's a big shift in the Australian community around the urgency that we need to act to address climate change. And the Greens have been consistent in advocating for change, in recognising the scale of the crisis and the emergency. And I think I bump into people right across the country who have said to me, we're so glad you guys are there, and many others who say, look, we've thought about the Greens, but we're going to vote for you guys this time because you're the only party that's serious about tackling what is the biggest problem facing us, our kids and our grandkids. So I feel very, very confident about the future for the party, and I think we're in for a great result at the next election.
Now, you say that the results improved in the last election. It might have been the vote creeping up a little bit, but you didn't manage to get any other seats. And that has been a criticism or a query of the party. Why, given all the factors and the concern over global warming, that you haven't been able to make more inroads?
Well, you're right that our vote did go up, and it went up significantly. We had a doubling of our vote in South Australia. We had big swings in states like Queensland.
More seats.
Well, that was in the Senate in part because of the electoral cycle. If we just repeat this vote, even if we stand still at the next election, we'll return 3 more senators. So we'll see a big increase in our representation in the Senate. We've come close in a number of lower house seats. I think we're on the cusp of seeing some major breakthroughs there. And you will see that in a parliament where no party, I mean, the support for the major parties is falling off a cliff. It has been on the decline for 30 years. Power sharing parliaments like we had in 2010 will be much more common. I think that's the future for Australia. And the Greens will be in there making sure that whoever is in government, that we are holding them accountable for their failures on climate action, and returning to what we did in 2010, which is working cooperatively with independents, with the Labor Party, having a price on carbon, billions of dollars into clean energy, which are still flowing now as a result of many of the changes we made back then. And that's the future for Australian politics. It's the only future if we're going to tackle the climate crisis.
Do you think that the climate crisis can be tackled under the current makeup of this parliament?
Oh, well, Scott Morrison's been a catastrophic failure. He has failed to lead the country through an emergency, and his policies, his refusal to acknowledge that we were confronting an unprecedented fire season. He was told so many times, I've lost track of the number of times I stood up in the Senate last year and said, will you meet with the fire chiefs who are telling us that we are on the cusp of tragedy? And he refused to do that. He's appeased the climate deniers inside his own party. We've got the fast that's going on within the National Party right now. It's about time that those people within the coalition who understand the science, who accept that we are facing a climate emergency, make their voices heard, exert their authority in the party room, and not let a rump of climate deniers, people who are more interested in doing the bidding of big coal barons, make their voices heard and ensure that we've got a bipartisan, a multi-partisan approach to the climate crisis ahead of us.
There's been some suggestion that the Greens should perhaps focus solely on global warming and the climate crisis and put less focus into other social issues that might arise. Do you think that could be something the next leader, whoever it might be, it apparently will be Adam Bandt, should consider?
I think the climate crisis is front and centre. It has been for us over my term. In fact, when I took on the leadership, Lisa, my opening comments were that unless we deal with the climate crisis, everything else is background noise.
But you have spent a lot of time on the background noise, whether it was same-sex marriage or other social issues. My question is, what do you think of those suggestions that actually you really need to not bother with those other social issues?
Well, no, I think we need to do both. And one of the proudest moments I had as leader was standing there in the parliament knowing that we were the only party to tackle marriage equality right from the outset and seeing that legislation pass, and it's made a big difference to the lives of many Australians. No, I'm very proud of our advocacy on that. I'm very proud of the fact that we're a party that stood up for a banking royal commission, a voice of decency and compassion for the treatment of innocent people locked up in offshore prisons. No, I think we need to continue to do all of those things. A banking royal commission driven by the Greens, a national anti-corruption watchdog, all critical measures. But of course, climate change is front and centre right now. It always has been for the Greens, and it will be, I'm sure, under another leader.
Just one last question, and turning back to the National Party, if Barnaby Joyce did succeed today, one of the suggestions already is that he'll be looking for a better deal for water for regional Australia. What do you think would be the impact of a Barnaby Joyce leadership victory?
Well, I think Barnaby Joyce said he was standing for invisible Australians. I think there are a lot of people across the country, indeed inside his own party room, who wish Barnaby Joyce was an invisible Australian right now. I mean, look, I've met a lot of people in my time in politics, and I think most people are in there for the right reasons, and then there's Barnaby Joyce. It's always been about Barnaby Joyce in his professional life, in his life generally. I think that his election to the leadership of the National Party would be a disaster for the National Party and for the country. I think it says something that Matt Canavan's out there spruiking for Barnaby Joyce. It says more about Matt Canavan than anything else he's done in this parliament. He has been a disgrace as a leader in this country. He has taken water from the environment and given it to big corporate irrigators. He's been a climate denier. He's been a hypocrite. And I think the National Party would have rocks in their head if they decided to turn to Barnaby Joyce to lead them through this period of parliament.
Richard Di Natale, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Lisa.